Thank you, Madam. 4 clarifications for Senior Minister of State. Earlier in his speech, he alluded to the court case which MND brought against HPTC and the position that we took at the time. I'd like to clarify that we took the position based on legal advice, and as it turned out, the court did rule that MND was not the proper party to sue the town council in that instance. Secondly, regarding civil servants, he seems to suggest that I'm implying that civil servants are not responsible or somehow biased. Let me just clarify that as a former civil servant myself, I do recognize that civil servants do their best to act responsibly, but in this case, what the Part 6A is expecting HDB employees, for example, who are appointed as inspectors to do is to possibly make adverse findings against their political masters. And the investigation will be triggered by the Minister for National Development himself. And while he may want to do the right thing, or the public servants may want to do the right thing, the reality is such. And I think those of us who are realists will know the problem. Thirdly, regarding the issue of whether MND is the proper entity to implement or to supervise town councils as such, I mean, as the SMS has repeated many times, fundamentally, town councils are political institutions. And to vest a political office holder with the decision-making power over political institutions, I think is just not tenable. And as I mentioned in my speech, it is not just my view, but it is also the view of some corporate governance observers who have mentioned that, at least in terms of perception, it just doesn't look right. And he also mentioned that MND has also, been so-called quite nice to AHTC by writing to us to tell us that, our accounts, maybe there's some things that we need to clarify. But at the same time, we see a media release yesterday, nicely timed for today's debate. So, I mean, this is just another example of the ministry's behavior. And perhaps for now, Madam, one last clarification. I'm not too clear about what SMS meant regarding the conflicts of interest and the C-suite, which he talked about in his opening speech. Because currently, the way the provisions are worded, so long as this person has a significant influence over the business of the MA, that person will not be able to be a TC secretary or GM. And I mean, the point is it just the CEO? What is the meaning of significant influence? It cannot just be at that level.
Madam, first question was about whether MND was the right party to sue, what the court found, and what your lawyer said. HTC, when it was brought to court, was asked to respond to an application by HDB to let the court appoint an independent auditor to look into its difficulties. It was not a case of MND. It was not a case of MND asking the court to allow MND to go in. It was MND asking the court to appoint an independent auditor. And the first key point that struck us was that HPTC or HTC resisted that court application as framed. Now, the point about MND being found by the court not to be the right party had nothing to do with this point about whether anything could be done if there was mismanagement. It was purely based on the court's reading of whether it was MND or HDB. And ultimately, they said it was HDB, and HDB made the application in Court of Appeal. But the key point I would like this House to take away was that while Ms. Lim talked aspirationally about the need for independence and independent oversight, what the Town Council was arguing in court was that where there was mismanagement of funds, nothing could be done beyond the ballot box. The second point was about civil servants and about whether they are prepared to make adverse findings against political masters. I think she's just contradicted herself. First, she says, on the one hand, a sop to her colleagues or former colleagues to say that they are people of integrity and of spine and steel, and will do what is right, as is the ethos of this public service. And on the other, in a backhanded way, she says they will kowtow their timorous souls, in fact, is what she's saying. I think we all object to that. Our officers are brought up with an ethos of integrity, service, and excellence. There is indeed now ongoing a CPIB investigation into certain individuals or an individual in the Ang Mo Kio Town Council, as reported in the news. What is Ms. Lim's analogy extending to that case going to be? Third, MND being political because the minister is a politician and that town councils are political and therefore the ministry should not be a regulator. The ministry has been a regulator for 28 years. Yes, we have more powers today to intervene, but these powers are because the unspoken compact when the town councils were formed 28 years ago has been broken. And that compact is premised on town councillors and elected members recognizing the electoral accountability, the visibility to the residents, would do what is right to fix the problems and would proactively do it, as has been wont of many town councils by the government, who will report to CPIB and police when things are wrong. But in AHPETC's case, despite its external auditor's findings, despite the AGO's report, despite the findings by the High Court and Court of Appeal, and despite KPMG's report, take the view that come. The reports don't say that definitively, yes, there is a cloud, but you prove it, and I'll sit tight. Even today, we have to wait for an independent panel, external from the town councillors, to take decisive action. So when it comes to whether MND is appropriate regulator, I think it is. We have indicated to Mr. Singh that in regard to clause 43B, it will be an independent auditor, independent individual who conduct investigations of all town councils. As to conflict of interest, Madam, we have to decide where to draw the line. Where there is a conflict of interest, the first basis, the first thing you do is to declare it, have it registered, and recuse yourself. Don't take part in the decision because you are conflicted. But we have gone much further to say that if you are a person wielding significant influence over the managing agent, you are not allowed to occupy key office in the town council. So we have to strike a balance between a recusal process and an absolute prohibition. And I think we've taken a high water mark.
Slim, we are going round in circles, as you can see. So you want to make another clarification?
To ask a question, Madam.
Yes, please proceed.
Yes, Madam. To follow up on what the SMS mentioned about the AGO, actually our proposal is that the AGO do rotational audits of all town councils. I think what he's actually responding to is that he's saying that under Part 6A, if the minister should instruct so, the AGO may be activated. But fundamentally, to ensure an even keel and uniform standard throughout all the town councils, we see a great value in getting the AGO to do rotational audits of TCs, whether or not the minister triggers them.
Madam, each year TCs already have to be audited by external auditors, and the AGO has decided that individual town councils can suggest auditors which are to be approved. I think that's the case every year. I think, Madam, Ms. Lim is confused between the annual financial audit and the audit in Part 6A. And in Part 6A, there are two kinds of interventions. One are health checks, compliance reviews, and the other are where there are investigations arising from a reasonable suspicion of wrongdoing. In the latter, I've explained to Mr. Singh that in regard of investigations into town councils, they will be carried out by independent professionals. The AGO can already be triggered under the clauses in the Audit Act, as had been the case for AHPETC.